Now, around 2 months ago, I talked about a YouTuber known as James Bear who makes little animations on their channel about them and their partner Claire, in which they go over many little funny concepts and things along those lines. It's not entirely my cup of tea, but I have watched it before. But yes, I did talk about this person 2 months ago. That reason being that they had done very morally effed up things with their sister, who was alleged to be 9 years old at the time. Now, James Bear, I think, has only made a couple of responses over the past 2 months, or even only one response over the past 2 months up until today, when they have recently come back and made another response, in which I believe this one was handled a lot better, especially considering the explicitity of the situation and his prior response. I feel like this one is a lot more mature and taken more into consideration. Mind it only being 4 minutes, but that's besides the point. Now, if you're unaware of what James Bear actually did, James Bear essentially owned up in a message back a couple of years ago that they had done very immoral things to their 9-year-old sister while they were only 13 years old. He fed many false and lying stories to different people to see who would quote-unquote gossip, in which confused a bunch of people and made it seem like he had done it multiple times. And essentially in his messages, he made the excuse that he did it because he was depressed and in a very bad emotional situation. Back in 2015, 2016, he was depressed, so that's why he did illegal shit to his sister who was only 9 years old. I know everyone's experience was different, but I knew what sex was when I was 13. Actually, when you're 13, you're in like 8th grade. You just learn sex ed. But I'm not going to question anyone's experiences here. But yeah, I'm going to be getting into the response to the whole situation, which has been taken into consideration for 2 months, so it has to be a good one. I mean, if you're going to wait this long to make an apology/response video, then it might as well be good. Before I do, if you enjoy this sort of content where I talk about these sorts of situations and criticize people for certain different things, or if you just enjoy my commentary content overall, then definitely do hit that fat red button with the notification bell, because it would just genuinely help out a lot and it would be a great support to my content. Without further ado, let's get into this video.
After taking some time off to reflect and seek help, I'm here to give a coherent response to some criticism that I've received. I think some of it is valid and some of it is invalid. For those of you who are unaware, I've been subject to scrutiny due to an event that happened in my past. An event that did happen, but important information regarding it has been left out or replaced with misinformation. I've responded to this multiple times in the past, but I responded poorly. I assumed everyone already had all of the context, so my responses were often vague or were missing
many others think
information.
this is a good response, I'm going to call a little BS on this one. There's no way that you made those responses with just thinking that people had context to the situation, especially considering that that document was released in like 2018 and it's only come to light in like April, bro. Implying everyone has context. You have 300,000 YouTube subscribers and rarely anyone has seen that document up until this April. How in any which way could it be something that's like, oh, I'm pretty sure you had the context, that's why I was being vague? I'm assuming that it's not, because a lot of content creators that make responses like that are just saying that to back their case on being vague. Because if I was in that situation, if I'm going to be 100% honest, I obviously wouldn't want to lose my fan base either because I'm directly responding to something. It's just genuine human nature, but that doesn't mean it's a good thing to do, because it shouldn't happen. Especially, again, you need to give context for each one of your responses, unless you've made like a bunch of responses that like almost all of your fan base has seen, not just like an Instagram story where you talk about it vaguely. Maybe I could understand your point, but you know, I'm still not seeing it.
I also made some emotional responses that didn't properly convey the truth about the situation. This is on me, and I apologize for my lack of clarity. The event in question has left me with scars that I have yet to completely heal from. But before I tell my story, I want people to know that I made the mistake I made without knowing what I was doing. When I was a child, I once had a encounter with a family member. It was an isolated situation, and it has deeply traumatized me. When the incident occurred, I had no knowledge of what I did or why it was immoral. I didn't even have a basic understanding of what sex was due to being a sheltered kid. When I found out what I did when I was older, I felt nothing but grief. I will never make this mistake ever again. When I found out what I'd done, I sank into a depression that lasted for many of my teenage years. I started telling my friends about it when I was 14 years old. Some of them told my story to others to try and embarrass me. After this happened, I've dramatized details when retelling the story. I changed certain parts because I wanted to see who would and wouldn't gossip about it.
But like, why though? Aside from it being like a social experiment between like your friends and you wanted to see who would gossip, why is this a good situation to use that? What was the thought process behind thinking, oh yeah, well, I mean, it's sort of a trauma that I bear, and it's also something that would be definitely traumatizing to the alleged family member in question, but no, let's use it as a gossip stepping stone so that we can tell who's a real friend or not. And why would you even dramatize it in the first place? Like, that doesn't make it any better for you. And it's funny, I can't really tell if this is a cover-up or a genuine thing, because it's a good response, don't get me wrong, but come on now. It's very convenient that, you know, you make multiple stories up and then you state that you were trying to do it to be like seeing who would gossip and seeing who's a good person or not. Using that situation as a stepping stone isn't good. Also, might I add, like, bro, I would never tell my friends. I'd be ashamed, bro. Now, I know you said you were definitely an isolated kid, so you didn't understand what sex was at that age. But at 14, you would have started degree for something, or you would have at least had an understanding, because at 14, you literally have to have sex ed in your health class, even in middle school, actually. In your last year of middle school, you usually have sex ed, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this is a different thing for wherever he resides in, but you usually would be forced to take that class in middle school, unless your parents say otherwise. And I also don't know why he'd say that there's some of the criticism is misinformation, and especially if what he's saying here is true, then he literally just started that misinformation in the first place. But we move. You know.
So this is why there are some conflicting accounts about what exactly happened. This is what led to some of the misinformation. The incident only happened once, but because of the multiple stories I've told, some people have been misled into believing that it happened multiple times. This isn't true.
Maybe you're right and it wasn't true, but again, in the original message that you deemed, well, you didn't deem, but you didn't deny was true, so I'm not going to take your silence as consent, or whatever, however they'd call it, but you literally said in one of the original messages that it lasted over from 2015 to 2016. Now, maybe that's one of the misinformed stories. If you're watching this, James, then please do tell me, because then some of the things that you said in that story, I won't take at face value anymore. So it's either or. It's either that, hey, he's telling the truth, yeah, he made up multiple stories, that's kind of a shitty thing to do, but you want to know what? It can't be helped anymore. Or this is just a very convenient excuse for the fact that he had done it multiple times, which I'm not implying that he did. There's just two options to choose from here, and I'm not choosing either of them, and I'm leaving it up for discussion.
I personally apologize to everyone who I misled with these alterations to the story. I was being destructive to myself and disingenuous to you. You didn't deserve that. Some of the people who I confided in tried to use my story to take advantage of me and try to hurt me for their own gain. These people also attempted to make me out as a predator. I was a child who was unable to truly consent to the situation I was in because I was too naive to even understand it. So I've always felt like this assessment hasn't been fair. Worst of all is that some people have used this situation as an excuse to threaten me, create drama with my friends, or to harass people that I've loved. This has hurt me a lot recently, but while it's hard to face some of the harassment I've received, I'm mostly hurt by what this has done to the people I have cared about. I want nothing more than for that to stop.
I understand the public response because this does need to be addressed, but at some points this seems unnecessary. Why are you making an apology to us? Like, what do we take from this? There's only a couple people that could be possibly hurt in this situation, which is your friends who are allegedly being harassed, you who is allegedly being harassed, and your grief and scars from you doing that to your family member, obviously without you knowing and understanding the concept of sexual behavior. And finally, the family member that did get abused, because technically, in the limelight here, if we're speaking logically, you were technically the abuser. I'm not saying you are an abuser, I'm saying in that situation, because I'm not implying that 13-year-old James has malicious intent. I mean, it was definitely not an okay thing to do, really screwed up, and the fact that you'd over dramatize it to people and spread misinformation towards other people isn't just destructive towards yourself, it's destructive towards people you like, people you know, that victim, and actually other people that are being fed these lies, because if they go out with this, they go public with this, and they are told, oh no, that's misinformation because such and such, they're pitted as someone who's making false accusations, all because of what you said being false and misleading. And listen, I'm not that much older than James was when he told this story to other people. I mean, they said that they were, 13 in 2013, and it stopped in 2016, so I'm guessing that's when they started talking about it. So from the range of 2016 to 2017, they were about 15 to 16 years old. So yeah, I'm not very far away from how old they are, so I'm not much farther off, and personally, and obviously no circumstances can be different, I don't spread misinformation about things that have actually traumatized me in my life. I also understand and have a concept of what sex and the R word is. But again, I'm not saying their circumstances are exactly the same whatsoever by any means, because I didn't do anything weird with family members, by the way. I had to make that clear because I feel like I was implying it for a second.
I felt horrible as soon as I found out I made a mistake. Once I was finally able to internalize its implications, it was already in the past and I could no longer undo it. I still feel an immense amount of remorse, but I don't want the mistakes I made as a boy to define my life as a man. It's been almost a decade since it happened, and I never imagined that this burden would come back in and out of my life for this long. I want everyone to know that this is the last time I'll respond to this, because I can't let it continue to define me. I'm an artist who wants to bring creative ideas into the world. Everyone else in my family has already moved on from this, but I've let it linger for far too long. Therapy and support from a small hand of people has helped me a lot. I'm convinced that I need to let this chapter of my life end and move on so I can be a better person. Thank you, everyone who has been there for me throughout this entire situation. I handled everything so poorly from the start, and the fact that anybody is still listening means a lot to me. I'm going to take some more time to recover before returning to YouTube. But when I return, I hope to show you all that I'm a better James. Thanks for listening.
Kind of a W in that last part, honestly. Taking more time off is probably one of the best options you can take, despite it only really being 2 months since you've taken a break from it. Well, at least since the situation was popularized, I can't entirely say how long you've been going through therapy for this, but Jesus Christ, I can't talk. But yeah, in total, the situation was pretty screwed up. I'm not very happy about, the entire situation as a whole, and it's extremely unfortunate, and I can't just excuse James' actions by saying, well, kids will be kids. I can't excuse any of his actions, like the dramatizing and the misleading information, as well as the misleading stories that he put out there. I cannot, support him on any of those things or try and defend him. If anything, I want to go against that as much as possible and criticize those actions. Then again, I'm around that age point, so I know, I can relate. But nor can I just eternally hate James for this, as he is right. It almost has been a decade since this scenario has actually happened. And, they've been seeing therapy. They've been getting help from a small handful of people. So, and overall, I don't think there's, a forgiving thing because I'm not the one to forgive James. I'm not the person to do that. And allegedly, everyone in his family has moved on. So, yeah, pretty effed up situation. James was pretty effed up back then, but it's whatever. We move. But, yeah, that's about it. And if you enjoyed this video, then hit that fat subscribe button and hit the notification bell as well so that you're notified every time I upload a new video just like this one. Speaking of videos just like this one, there should be 2 on screen right now that will redirect you to a different video that is, of course, sort of like this one, and you'll probably enjoy it. But yeah, that's about it. Bye.